Okay, council has obviously left our executive session. We're back to our regular session. And for the benefit of those who've joined us, I will mention that we had done our customary things like call to order and pledge of allegiance earlier. We are now at item F on tonight's agenda. That's public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment on a non-agenda item? Judy, have we had any emails or any requests? Okay. Apparently not. So we will go ahead and move forward. Next item is the consent calendar. We have two items. First is the approval of the city council regular meeting minutes for the meeting on November the 1st. And the second item is our warrants for October. I would entertain a motion to approve and accept unless someone wants to take an item off and discuss it. Julie?
Excuse me, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry, move to approve.
Move to approve. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councillor Chandler. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
7-0 in favor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the consent calendar is approved. Next item is scheduled on the agenda was a hearing for 125 Higginbotham Road. My understanding is the applicant has requested withdrawal of that to a future date. Denise, do you have additional comments?
Mayor, that's correct. I told Hannah she did not have to be here, the planning director, because it's a formal request to withdraw and you have the letter requesting such.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I guess we'll expect to hear that another day. Next item is J1, Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member third in line appointment. And if we recall at last week's meeting during council correspondence, Mr. Shada indicated that he has had a number of personal things or things in his personal life that have required more time and attention. And he had suggested that he trade places essentially with Councillor Fortune, that she step into the Mayor Pro Tem's position, and then he would then become the Vice Mayor Pro Tem or the third in line appointment. So I would entertain a motion to that
So
effect.
moved.
The motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Chandler. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. Sorry.
Thank you. 7-0 in favor.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Congratulations, Nancy. You'll serve now as Mayor Pro Tem. And Mr. Shada, thank you. You'll be Vice Mayor Pro Tem, and I hope that you hope things ease up for you a little bit. Very good. Okay, item J2, appointment of Ren Almitra, I hope I said that right, as a regular member of the Manitou Arts, Heritage and Cultural Board. And Ren, if you're here, if you'd like to step forward and say hi, introduce yourself. Yeah, I'm sorry. Have a seat. You'll have to push the mic and it should go green. You need to be about 3 inches away from the microphone. Give us your name and address, please.
Sure. Renal Mitra, 209 Pawnee Avenue, apartment 3.
Okay, great. And you're applying to be a member of the match board.
Correct.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your motivation for serving?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I shared in my letter, I think I shared this in my letter. I moved to Manitou about 3 years ago from Iowa. I've been looking for more opportunities to get involved in the community and meet people in the community. And I have a pretty strong grant writing background in nonprofit management. And so this seems like a great opportunity to serve the community and help community endeavors with the grants that are administered through the match board.
Great, thank you. Council, any comments or questions for Ren? Nancy?
I just have one comment to show Ren's commitment to the community. She's already volunteered to help the Hiawatha Garden Task Force assess and perhaps write some grants for us. So I think that that's really a good sign. Thanks.
Good. Judith?
Ren, I don't know you personally, but I was very impressed with your resume. And the match is lucky to have someone with your caliber of skill set, and really appreciate you stepping up to the plate and serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve Ren as a member of the match board.
So moved.
Okay, and seconded by Counselor Wolf. Okay, any further discussion? Let's vote.
Seven to zero in favor.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Ren. We appreciate you stepping up. Okay, next item, first reading of ordinance number 2222, an ordinance adopting the annual budget and appropriating funds for fiscal year 2023 and amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2022. And we have our finance director, Becca Davis, here to walk us through this.
Good evening. Per the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, local governments levying property tax must adopt their budgets before certifying the mill levy to the county. The deadline for certifying the mill levy is December 15th, 2022. The budget appropriate ordinance is being presented to City Council tonight for first reading in order to meet this requirement. The ordinance being presented to you tonight covers the general fund and 13 other funds, and total expenditures for all these funds is $25,744,446. Now, due to time constraints, the November 8th election results are not reflected in the budget book, but they will be in there for the second reading. And I did edit the summary of the general fund to reflect that vote. So its numbers are as of after November 8th. Now, originally, 2 proposals were presented to City Council, but with the strong fund balance, staff determined that only proposal 1 would be actually considered. And the ending unassigned general fund balance for 2022 before the November 8th election results was projected to be $6,693,106. Now, with the recreational marijuana not passing in Colorado Springs, the sales tax will be adjusted up, bringing the unassigned general fund balance to $8,385,106. And the appropriation ordinance has those numbers in it. Now, tonight, staff is bringing some items to City Council for discussion for possible changes to the budget for the second reading. First, the leadership team is recommending a 2 to 3% cost of living adjustment in addition to the already budgeted 5% merit increase. So City Council is being asked to approve a COLA percentage increase and to determine what that should be. Second, this is just a reminder that the COG agreement disbursement is budgeted. It is under revenues, and it's what I call a revenue appropriation. So the revenue for the excise tax is shown net of the disbursement to the COG. And for next year, I'm going to put in a contra account so that's reflected easily seen. Now, third, the ERA is presented what they would like to do with a disbursement of the sales tax if City Council decides to do that. And that's not currently budgeted. So City Council is being asked tonight whether they wish to budget a disbursement for the URA. If it looks like for this year, we're still tracking numbers. If a disbursement would have been done, the total amount would have been about $1.7 million. So that's what I've forecasted for 2023. And finally, if City Council does not want to appropriate the disbursement for the ERA, does City Council want to budget the Holiday Inn Express disbursement? Once again, that number is not in this budget, so it would have to be added for the second reading. So once these decisions have been made and the budget is appropriated at first reading with any changes that are decided on tonight, staff then recommends that this budget be appropriated at first reading.
Okay, thank you. Council, the city budget is always a major effort. It's a fairly heavy lift each year. Tonight, I think we have at least 3 important questions, and what I would, and you may have more. So what I'd like to first do is just kind of discuss how we might attack the problem tonight. I think one issue is as Becca said, do we want to do a 2 or 3% cost of living adjustment for city staff? So if council's agreeable, I'd like to tack that first. We also have the COG agreement to discuss and the URA, and there's 2 flavors, the URA by itself, I guess, and then the Holiday Inn. So there's 3 topics, and there may be additional things you want to talk about, but if that seems like a reasonable order, we could pursue that. Can I do one thing at a time so we don't bounce all over the place? Julie?
Thank you. Beck, can you tell us how much was paid to the COG for their tax rebate in 2022?
In 2022, I believe it was a little over 300,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
In 2021? How
Oh,
about-
wait a minute. That was for 2022. That was paid beginning of the year for 2021.
So the 300,000 or so was paid in 2022 based on the 2021 tax collections?
Yes.
Julie, actually, what I propose is the order that we address things in. If council has no objection, I'd like to do the cost of living adjustment first, but I can entertain Natalie and then John.
I just
Natalie?
have a quick question. Are we making a motion or we're just discussing? They're all separate. Are they 3 separate motions or is it
No, well,
just
I
the
think
budget?
there's 3 separate topics, and
Okay.
I can see where we get wrapped around the axle. And certainly if in the discussion of those items, council would like to make a motion, I think that would be the appropriate time, kind of work through the list. It's just that the odds are, when a complex animal like this is, we could end up bouncing around all night. So it's just a kind of priorities. That would be my thought. John, your comment?
Becca, could you give me the number of what the 2% increase would cost the city? I'm sure you have that. I know you do.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the cost of living increase.
Is that what you want? Is that
Okay.
what your
Well,
pleasure is, Mr.
I
Mayor?
just, if somebody, I wanted to make sure that you're all comfortable with that, but
That's
it
fine.
seems that's the case. Okay, so first topic here, we're going to talk about the city employees' compensation.
Okay, the cost of living adjustment for 2%, including benefits, is forecasted to be 94,300. %3 is 141,400. Oh.
So each percentage is about 47,000, is that correct?
Let me look this 5% up real quick, like. The 5% would be. Let's see here, where did it go? $223,880.
Nancy, did you? Yeah, there's your hand. Nancy?
Yeah, I think we have, we're achieving a much more stable staff and hence a much more efficient and effective staff. And I would like to maintain that staff. So I would like to move that we approve the 3% COLA in addition to the 5% budgeted merit.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So Natalie, was that you? Okay, all right, seconded by Counselor Johnson. Yeah, open for discussion and deliberation. John?
It seems like inflation is running at about 8%. And I think that something along 8 is a lot more fair. Our city employees, year after year after year, have been so behind the curve. And I feel really strongly that this council to step up to the plate and make sure that our employees, their salaries are not eroded by the scalloping inflation. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
And I also, Becca, I believe that would cost us $377,200. Is that correct? That's a linear number in terms
Yes.
of, okay, thank you.
Well, plus the 365,280 for the 5% merit increase, correct?
Well,
Yes.
I'm not arguing about the merit thing. That's something that the city administrator handles as a part of our evaluation process. Okay, I'm talking about leveling it from the standpoint of inflation. Thank you.
Other comments?
I missed that number. Can you tell me again what 8% comes out to? John, did you say it's
377,200.
Sounds good. I have to-
$377,200. That's as long as her numbers, her chart's linear. Okay.
We'll comment that last week I had a very similar discussion at Pikes Peak PPACG, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. We were looking at compensation for the staff there, and in conjunction with that, a number of county commissioners and other representatives from other cities were talking about their situations, and it seemed like 7 to 8% has been about the norm. So I think what we're proposing here is kind of market rate, if you will. Other comments? Michelle?
I move that we make a motion to have an April.
We have a motion in
Oh,
a second. We're
sorry.
just in deliberation now. But if there's any further discussion?
Can I call
forget
the
what
question?
motion is. 3.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The motion was for a 3%.
So can I
Cola.
call the question? I would like to call the question, please.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So the motion is 5% budgeted merit and a 3% COLA cost of living in addition. All vote.
We have a 5-2 vote in favor. And the no votes are Counselor Wolf and Shada.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The order I propose, the next item is the COG agreement. And just to refresh our memory, Becca, the current state of the budget that presupposes that this would be the full rebate back to the COG the way it's set up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh.
I'm showing the amusement tax net of the reimbursement to the COG.
Okay, thank you. That's good for clarification. Council discussion? Julie?
Thank you. Becca, how much do you anticipate we'd be paying out of in 2023 to the COG if we appropriate the full amount allowed under the contract?
600,000.
And the 600,000, does that include both the use tax and the other?
Nope, I have nothing budgeted for use tax. So it's just for excise.
What was the
Slash.
use tax last year?
Use tax last year, gosh, I think it was pretty close to 200,000. But per the contract, we were only reimbursing total use tax through the end of 2021. And then after starting in 2022, the only use tax that will be reimbursed is for rolling stock.
And can you elaborate on what that means in dollar amounts to the?
Well, that is my problem. I have no idea how much a cog car or a engine would cost.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking, if we vote yes, we're looking at appropriating, giving them the COG about $600,000 of the tax money they gave us. We're going to give 600K back if we vote yes to do the full amount.
Yes, to the
Okay,
to the budget as it now stands.
thank you.
Other comments? Nancy?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to share a number of thoughts that I have on both this and the Holiday Inn. And I have a couple of recommendations, but I will split up my I'll just do the COG right now, okay? But some of what I'm talking about, the COG also applies to the Holiday Inn. Last February, we agreed that we were facing a huge threat to our revenue stream while also being faced with a number of capital projects. Therefore, if memory serves me, we agreed that revenue sustainability and productions were our top priorities. So we need to think very carefully about what we are doing to actually produce and sustain revenue, not just short-term solutions or extremely high-risk situations. I perceive the TIA with the tax incentive agreement with the COG and the TIF with the Holiday Inn to be investments. In fact, TIFs and TIAs are very powerful tools in our economic development toolbox. And a previous council entered into the agreement with the COG, and overturning previous official commitments is very destabilizing and reminds me of what our national administration, previous national administration did by doing things like backing out on such agreements such as the Climate Accord. And I don't want to be associated with things like that. I feel very strongly, while it may technically be legal to fail to appropriate funds to honor existing contracts, that it would not be the right thing to do and would damage our reputation as a council and as a city. While it might put additional tax dollars into our coffers, it would be a short-term gain and would not be prudent from a strategic stance. Additionally, there are interim steps we can take before we jump to the extreme of just not paying in accordance with our established contracts. With that being said, pertaining to the COG, specifically to the COG agreement, I think that when I mentioned putting ourselves into a high-risk situation, I think we stand a very high chance of being sued if we do not act in accordance with strict accordance with the contract. Given the drastically different anticipated revenues experienced by the COG that we've seen this year, I absolutely support going back to them to discuss our valid concerns as well as to listen to theirs. And the agreement directs sitting down in the event of a dispute. So I think that we need to pay attention to that. Our council has not encouraged staff to keep open lines of communication with the COG, and lack of communication generally leads to increased misunderstandings and distrust. Before we move in closer to a legal fight, I recommend we sit down and get an understanding on what the issues are on both sides. I'm concerned that we've allowed the attorneys to discourage communication, and as a result, we have allowed this to elevate when we may have been able to work it out earlier. The fact is, prior to the recreational marijuana, the COG was by far the biggest tax producer for our city, sales tax producer. Under the tax incentive agreement, we still get over $500,000 in tax revenue from them, and that is a significant amount of money. I'd like to say that, in my opinion, we're very much tied at the hip with the COG and more dependent than ever on their tax dollars, as we can expect marijuana revenues to continue to fall. If the COG's revenue goes down, so will ours. And if we become a city where tourists no longer come to, then the COG revenues will go down and we both can enter into a negative spiral. So we are incentivized to pay attention to one another and help one another out. The fact that we have an unprecedented reserve and that in accordance with the contract, we don't pay the COG till March gives us time to develop a strategy that is a lower risk than just not appropriating funds. So our recommendations are, First, we honor the agreement with the CROG by appropriating the amount contracted in accordance with the contract. The result of that would be we don't get sued and we don't lose credibility as a city that does not honor its obligations. My second recommendation is that we appoint or hire a team to communicate with the COG and keep open lines of communications with the COG. City council really is not in a position to do that. We should be the last line of appeals and decisions. We have good assets on staff and in the community. Final, as I mentioned, council should be the final appeal and approve the stuff. We honor our obligations and we don't lose credibility as a city that negotiates in good faith. And then when it doesn't work out as expected, we reconsider. So that's what I wanted to say about the COG. And I would be prepared to make a motion to that effect.
I can appreciate that you want to make a motion. I guess I would ask that we maybe sample council, give council the opportunity to make more comments if there's an interest. Julie?
I have a suggestion with respect to the motion. It sounds like there are three parts to the motion, so maybe we should have the three parts separated. I mean, if we vote yes on appropriating the whole amount, then we also have to vote yes on having a team. I just thought maybe we should separate out the issues as my suggestion is all.
And that's fine. I am fine with just making a motion to appropriate the full amount and give guidance if we wanted to do that. I do think it's important to direct that we reopen communications, robust communications with the COG.
Since it's already in the budget, when you appropriate the budget first reading, that would automatically happen. So you don't need to make a motion to appropriate the disbursement to the COG. You don't have to call that out of.
Right.
the-
Yeah, and I understand
ordinance.
that. It's just we kind of, if we decide this now.
I
then-
disagree with that. I would like Jeff Parker to weigh in on that. I don't agree with that legal analysis that we don't have to. I think the contract requires us to appropriate funds and to make a decision about appropriation of funds. And the funds are supposedly already in the budget, but I don't. We have to vote yes or no.
I
don't we?
think it's just semantics at this point. It's we don't have to, we could vote on the budget as a whole as it currently exists and we'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you how you want to do it, but ultimately, if you do approve the entire budget and make an appropriation per the budget, you will have appropriated what the budget shows. So you can address each issue separately, but ultimately, you're going to have to do a motion to approve the entire budget.
Did you have anything else, Nancy? Okay. Other comments? Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I do agree that we need to be very careful in honoring the agreements we made. And I am not opposed to approving the COG revenue amount for 2022 to be dispersed in 2023. And that with the understanding that this will be an annual appropriation that we will be revisiting. And I do agree also with Councillor Fortune that increased communication with the COG is a good thing. And I think council members have asked for that in the past, and I think it would be wonderful if we could have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments. Yeah, I do think the city's integrity is at stake here. I realize that what's before council is something that was decided by a previous council, operating with different information. We have some historical perspective, but I think it's important that we keep our word. That said, I think it would be a good idea to maybe sit down if the COG were willing and chat about maybe some of our differences. I don't think they're huge or insurmountable. I think like it or not, we have 49 years of marriage ahead of us. And I guess one of the things that as I look over the agreement, it's how do you go 50 years without having some provision to work out differences, because obviously things change and sometimes there may be, you take some tweaks, take some adjustments. So that in my mind would be something I'd like. I think that's a little bit of a weakness of the agreement. You know, obviously I wasn't one who worked on it, so it's easy to have 20/20 hindsight. But I think also that we're in a situation where financially we're feeling pretty good. Given the election we had, or Colorado Springs had last week, I'm feeling better. I hope we all are. Those are my thoughts. And I think by and large, I think Councilor Fortune, or Mayor Pro Tem Fortune's proposal sounds good to me. Nancy, would you like to make, well, you had several items there. I think the first we don't.
Sure, I'd like
Need a
to
motion.
move and I would like to pull it out as a separate item. So from the budget, it ultimately, hopefully will have the same effect. But I'd move that we include in the budget, or we leave the budget as it stands for the COG appropriation. And I would also like to direct staff to go back and enhance communications with the COG railway. Reopen those lines of communication.
I second.
Motion to second. Any further discussion or comment? It's not okay. Let's go ahead and vote.
We have a 5-2 vote in favor, with Councilors Wolf and Shada voting no.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, did you have another point? Okay, that'd be the Holiday Inn. Okay. So I think we've covered the COG agreement. Any further discussion or concern? Okay. Then we have the URA. So Becca, again, I know you just said this a few minutes ago, but if you'd refresh our memories, where we stand, what's the current state of the budget relative to the URA issues?
The URA is not in the budget for 2023. And for 2022, it was only the amount that had been paid up to when city council decided to stop. So if city council decided to go ahead with appropriating funding for the URA, what that amount would probably be around $1.7 million.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, I would like to continue with my comments pertaining to the Holiday Inn and the URA. There are additional benefits to having the Holiday Inn other than just the direct sales tax from having that hotel there. It produced a well-run business in the URA that is generating significant income, which likely would not have happened without the tax incentive agreement. So whereas Manitou is not paying them out of our general fund, it is simply a reimbursement of the tax that they're producing. And in 9 years, Manitou will get the entirety of those taxes, and so we will no longer be under contract to reimburse them for investment. And I would say again that whereas it may not be that the city has the contract with the Holiday Inn, I consider that to be splitting hairs. The ORA has the agreement, and I think it reflects on us as a city and as a council. Other benefits from having the Holiday Inn is increased possibility of additional investments from other businesses when they see a business being successful in a blighted area. I would say it's an investment. Investments are inherently a risk, but there's a return on investments for both parties. And the return on investment is a lot more certain when that risk is shared. And that's kind of the point of a TIF, is the risk is shared. We have not worked I don't believe we have worked particularly well with the URA in finding a positive path forward. We did some discussion in executive session, but we only did one joint session with them prior to jumping to almost the most extreme step we could have taken. As a council, I believe we could lead better through communication and collaboration, especially when there is no rush and there are interim steps that we can take. I'd also like, if you hadn't seen in the paper this week, it was announced that Colorado Springs is annexing part of no man's land, and it will likely be a URA, and we need to consider how we will play in that with the two URAs right next door to one another. I think that there's some real opportunities for us there. So my recommendations are, first, that we appropriate $853 million of the $1 million that the URA has requested. Sorry. I wrote an M instead of a K. 850, yeah, they'd love that, wouldn't they? $853,000 of the $1 million that the URA has requested. And I'm basing this solely on their presentation from last Tuesday. So they asked for $1.33 million, which was split out into 681,000 plus a little bit for operations and redevelopment. And that would include the repayment to the reimbursement to the Holiday Inn, as well as the shuttle bus, salary for Jim, snow plowing the sidewalks, and a number of other, their lawyer, their legal fees, and so on. So that's the bulk of it, plus $115,000 for art pedestals and landscaping. And I remind you again that they have already committed to those. It's just whether they are able to pay for them or not at this point. $500,000 to the Highway 24 bridge, which I consider to be a huge safety concern for the entire city. And that estimate was confirmed with Dole as a valid estimate for the final design and initial construction. And then $35,000 for holiday lighting. So if we take that 1.3 plus million dollars that they asked for, or that they budgeted, and we take out the 363,000 that is left over from 2022, minus the $500 in interest, minus the 115,000 in property taxes, that equals $852,650, $8,052,650, which is half of what the URA would have gotten had we not made the decision we did a couple of months ago. So the result of that, if we do that, would be that if we appropriate $853,000, the city benefits by having the URA board and its staff work the issues that they are very familiar with them, and our staff is not as familiar, and they've got staff to work it. And then we wouldn't have to divert our city staff to work those issues. And I consider that quite a lot of bang for the buck. They'd also continue, such projects would be continue to work on the Highway 24 design to honor our commitment to the Holiday Inn Exchange so that we don't get sued, and that they pay for the 36 shuttle, which according to the TMMP, public transportation was the highest priority in the Transportation Mobility Master Plan. We would also be investing as a city by allowing the URA to keep using one of the most productive economic tools with $450,000 for redevelopment grants, which again, if there's a URA right next door, I think we're gonna, it would help us greatly to be able to continue to use TIF or other rehabilitation grants or whatever to encourage development in the URA. So if we do that, the city still sees an increased sales tax of $700,000. It's not the $1.7 million that that we would have if we gave them nothing back, but $700,000 is nothing to sneeze at. Second recommendation is that we work with the URA on processes for how projects are selected and funded in the future. It's my understanding that this is what used to occur. And I think that there can be great synergy if we work together with the URA rather than sidelining them. We can accomplish more and work so much more efficiently if we align the efforts rather than sidelining a hardworking, competent, and dedicated board that also has the best interest of Manitou as their goal. So those are my two recommendations, that we appropriate the $853 $100,000 and include that in the budget, and that we work together with the URA and come up with a process for how projects are selected and funded in the future. Thank you.
Other comments? John?
Mr. Parker, if we allocate these funds and the URA spends them for different things, what's our recourse?
Well, if you're gonna allocate them and have specific uses for the funds, rather than just basically reimbursing them via like a sales tax TIF, like you would just normally give them the money, and they basically follow it with, they'd expend it pursuant to the urban renewal plan. I'd want to have you put together an agreement with the URA regarding how the funds have to be spent, and then it'd be like a breach of contract issue.
It seems like to me that needs to be in order.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking back to late August when the URA made, I believe the term is a loan. Although I don't think I'd use that term to Richard Block. This is for the LaFawn property. There were several amounts. I believe Mr. Block put up $1.1 million, which is about a third of the package price. The URA put up the rest, which I think amounted to $2,150,000 thereabouts. That was for acquisition of the property, and 600,000 of that was for demolition and hazard abatement. And for that, the URA as security got, I believe it was the first deed of trust, which they will have until construction starts, and then that'll go to the contractor, to the a lender, I guess. And at that point, then the URA is going to be the last person in line to get the money. It is not a good. It seems to me to be it was a sweet deal for Richard Block. I have a lot of heartburn with the way the URA did it. I'm not saying they did anything illegal, but it sure, we have never, ever treated any of our own people this well. And so no one in Manitou should expect to be treated this well, to be handed, $2 million. So I'm kind of bitter about it. I'm inclined, in looking at the budget, they show $1 million from sales tax revenue. I would be inclined to, if we give them anything, to put some real stipulation on it as to how that money is spent. The redevelopment amount that they showed last month, last week, $450,000. I believe that includes 150 of that is for the Holiday Inn. And I've got mixed emotions about the Holiday Inn. I really think that was something the URA did without having to do it. In several conversations with Jim Rees previously, he indicated that the Holiday Inn people were going to do the project, whether the URA helped or not. They just kind of stepped in to sweeten the deal. So I don't feel as obligated to cut money loose for Holiday Inn. Other comments? Julie?
Thank you. When city council first entered into the agreement with the URA, there were no marijuana stores in town. And so the money that URA was anticipated to be collecting was a hell of a lot less than what they ended up with, like about $1 million a year less, right? So that was very lucky for them. But meanwhile, the rest of the city, I believe, is suffering because this money is all being concentrated on the East End, and we have a lot of needs in the city, as I think the mayor even pointed out in a previous meeting, and in an op-ed in the newspaper, if I remember correctly. So I don't feel as obligated as Nancy described to necessarily give them the full amount that they're asking for, because it's a lot more, like by about $1 million a year than anybody ever expected. I'm not in favor of giving them any money this year because I don't think it's needed. They already have the money in their budget from 2022 to pay the Holiday Inn tip if they want to. They can do that. They've got the money. They're going to get another, whatever it is, 105, 115,000 this year from property tax. They can spend that however they want. You know, they have a sweet contract that says that they can spend the money however they want, even though we asked them not to spend that $2,150,000 on the La Fun property. They did it anyway. It's not fair to the rest of Manitou. Nancy says they have, the URA has the best interests of Manitou as their goal. I would dispute that allegation. If they had the best interests of Manitou, then they would have cooperated with city council when we asked them to not go ahead with that La Fun deal. Nancy said, oh, it's a huge safety concern about Highway 24. We have a lot of safety concerns. We could use that money for fire mitigation. That's an even bigger safety concern, in my opinion. I'm not in favor of giving them the rebate this year, the TIF.
Okay, thank you. Natalie?
Sorry.
Natalie?
I just want to say that I don't remember ever telling them we couldn't, the URA that they couldn't spend the $2.1 million. We disagreed with one of the proposals, but we never told them that, to my memory.
No, I wanted to say that I like Nancy's proposal a lot because I feel like similar to the COG conversation, it allows us to work collaboratively within the community. And I do actually believe the Highway 24 interchange is really dangerous. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
I thought that the La Fun deal was not, if not illegal, was very, very reckless. It was very reckless. And I voted for the COG disbursement because I think we need to have a conversation with them. And I think that conversation needs to happen in 2023. So, but I felt okay with giving them, this disbursement, knowing that we need to come back to the table. With regards to the URA, I'm really torn because, say what you will about how the Holiday Inn looks from both the Manitou Avenue and from Fields Park. They played by the rules. They put the money up, they built the thing, and they were offered tax incentives. So I would be not thrilled, but more likely to honor that agreement with them and have the URA pay for that with, I don't know if they have funds sufficient from the property tax TIF. But when we were in an executive session with our city attorney, he outlined several other models in which URAs function. And I would like to see, before we give the URA any more money, other than I would be willing to consider the Holiday Inn money, although it does chap me, a different structure of the URA where the URA comes to who uses their expertise and looks for good projects and brings them to council, and we have a working relationship with the URA. They're going to continue to get, they would continue to get marijuana sales tax money. And after this La Fun deal, which was just a sweetheart deal for Paragon, I don't feel confident that that we have a good working agreement that benefits Manitou Springs as a whole. So I'd be more likely to hold off on giving them any money until we can iron some things out and take a look at our relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Nancy?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we appropriate $853,000 to the URA in accordance with the budget that or the plan that they submitted last week, and that before any of the redevelopment dollars be expended, that they have to come to council for approval.
do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Was there a second? Okay, second from Natalie. Council, any further discussion? John, did you have something or? Okay, all right. There being no further discussion, let's go ahead and vote.
We have a 2-5 vote with Counselors Wolf, Shada, Chandler, Weatherholt, and Mayor Graham voting no. And Counselors Johnson and Fortune voting yes.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, anybody have any further discussion on the URA? Okay, guess not. Okay, so we've covered, I think, the thorny topics on the budget. Do we have any other budget concerns that anyone would like to bring up?
The Holiday Inn Express, is that a part of the URA discussion or should that be? Okay.
Yeah, so I think we've decided that.
Can I have some clarification? What is the funds that are remaining in the UR's account right now? Do we know?
So could you put your mic on, Nancy?
They've got a fund balance for 2022 of 363,395, interest income of $505, and property tax increment in 2023 will be 115K.
So have there been any reimbursements out of that budget for this fiscal year for the TIF for the Holiday Inn? Does anybody know?
No.
No, I don't believe so. Correct.
Okay,
Becca?
so I believe Becca
No.
gave us an estimate based on what she was proclamating from another hotel, a pretty good guesstimate. So it sounds like to me, for the record, there are sufficient funds in the URA's budget to meet that TIF obligation. Is that not true?
Unfortunately, I can't, I double checked with Jeff Parker and I can't talk about sales tax for a particular property.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. But you know what? If it's another one of these cases, if these guys want a reimbursement, I need to have a number. Okay? So if we're going to play this cat and mouse game, okay, of not knowing what that number is, I guess my number is 0. Thank you.
May I make a comment? It's my understanding that the Holiday Inn hasn't made a request yet. Is that true? For reimbursement.
Yeah, that's correct. They have not been given any direction of what to do at this point for reimbursement. So they have not made a request at this point.
So just a quick note. So we can share some of the sales tax figures for the Holiday Inn, but it needs to be done like in confidence with the city council. It's the kind of thing where you just shouldn't be publicizing individual taxpayers' tax figures. So I don't want anybody at council, including Councilman Shea, to feel like we're hiding the ball on you.
I understand that, but once that TIF comes through, it's in their budget as a disbursement, so everybody will know. So I guess I'm having a problem with sort of kind of this mousy game here. Okay. If somebody's going to come forward for a TIF reimbursement, we need to know what that amount is, not just some number. Okay. And if we're going to basically get and I totally agree with Councilor Chandler, that I think our new way forward with the URA, okay, is on a line item by line item thing for approval as to what's going on. So if somebody wants to come back to us for TIF money, I guess I want to know what that total amount is my point. Otherwise, I'm just not going to just throw $1 million at it and hope it covers it. Thank you.
No, John, that seems reasonable to me also, that we know how much that we have a pretty good idea what that cost is. And I wouldn't have a problem with the URA coming and asking for money for specific purposes. I think if we we could have a little oversight on that. I think it'd be fine. I have the hope that the RA could do some good things. But when you look at the scope of the entire city and our needs, I think that money needs to be doled out judiciously to do the most good for the most people for the longest time. Nancy?
One other comment, I would like to request that the art pedestals and landscaping, the streetscape enhancements, holiday lighting, and shuttle contribution be added to the city's consideration for payment when we're talking how to use the reserve.
I would second that.
I'm sorry, Nancy, could you repeat that? The heaters.
Sure, basic, yeah, no, I know the heaters are difficult to hear around. I hadn't actually made a motion, but I certainly will. I was just asking the council that council incorporate into our decision-making process when it comes to using our reserve, all the things that now the URA is not able to pay for.
Nancy, could you specify those items again, please?
On their budget included streetscape enhancements, which was the Highway 24. And again, that's, well, I won't go into why I consider that so important. It's more than just safety. Art pedestals and landscaping, shuttle contribution, holiday lighting. That, oh yeah, the snow plowing. Well, I mean, that's all their operating budget. That was incorporated into this. Yeah, it was, you know, they'll come to us in January with their entire budget. I believe it's in January, isn't it? And with their budget, in fact, you can see it now. It's online, I believe.
Nancy, is
But
that did you make a motion? I know.
I did not make a
Got a
motion.
second.
I just, okay.
Well,
Wait a second. Okay, so Nancy here, let me just,
I will convert that to a motion.
well, okay, I would like to know what the dollar amounts for those things are. I think I
Yeah.
have them, but if you want to, if you would restate that with the dollar amounts.
also,
so we
can
know
I
how.
just ask for clarification before we go into the dollar amounts, may I?
Yeah,
On
go ahead,
something that
Julie.
Nancy said?
Yeah,
She said something about streetscapes or street enhancements. Oh,
That's-
that means Highway 24 improvement. I thought that didn't mean Highway 20. I understood that to mean something different.
According to the budget that Jim presented to us last week, streetscape enhancements are completing the design for Highway 24 and Manitou Avenue and initiate phase 1 construction. $500,000.
okay. So Nancy, then if you would mention your items again and the dollar amounts, please.
It gets kind of confusing because I was just saying these large ones because snow plowing is a much smaller amount and it was incorporated into their operations and operating budget, which includes Jim Reese's salary, their legal fees, snow plowing, any number of other things. So the big ones that I was talking about that I think we should talk about that I will move that we talk about when we discuss how to use our reserve is art pedestals and landscaping for $115,000. I'm not asking that we approve it, just that we consider it in conjunction with all our other projects. Streetscape enhancements, which was $500,000. Holiday lighting is $35,000. And shuttle contribution is $150,000.
Point of clarification, you said 415 for art pedestals and landscaping and their budget says
115,
115. Okay, just want to make sure. I thought you said.
Mayor, before a second, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Two things is their sidewalk snow clearance and cleaning, they have it down as 5,000. So they do have it as a line item for 5,000 for that. The other thing is under the shuttle, if the URA doesn't pay for it, instead of coming out of general fund, it should come out of the parking enterprise. So that should move over to the parking enterprise and not general fund.
Okay, so we have, you want to, that was stated as a motion, Nancy, or I think,
I stated it as a motion. I'm not sure that it needs to be a motion. I just would like that council to agree to consider these items, add them to our list of projects when we consider or so that we could look at them in context of all the other projects that we're going to be talking about when we look at our reserve. But if we want to vote on it, that's fine too. We have a motion and a second.
okay,
Well, I'll put it this way. Nancy, I agree with you conceptually. It sounds like to me, we don't need a motion to do that. I think we just need to ask the mayor to put it on as an agenda item for discussion in the future. Would that be amenable, Mr. Mayor?
yeah, we could do that. And I mean, and certainly I anticipate that we'll have future discussions of other items. We could simply include these items with everything else. I think that's what Nancy's asking for. Okay, if there's
I think if
no,
we have consensus with that, then I can withdraw my second, and I think that achieves what Nancy wants. Is that correct, Nancy?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that
Thank you.
it's not really needed a motion.
if council has no objections, then Mr. Shader, your second.
Well, it sounds like to me, we don't need to have a motion on the floor, right? We've got an agreement in terms of how we're going to discuss it. Thank you.
Good. We actually simplified something that was good.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Very good then. Okay, other budget questions? Concerns? Nothing else? Okay, yeah, okay, so now we have the budget itself, so I would accept a motion,
I
Nancy.
would like to move that we approve the budget as written. And as we stated, as we moved earlier in the evening to incorporate a 3% COLA increase in addition to the merit increase.
Could I make a friendly amendment?
Natalie, that was just a motion.
A motion. So I need a second and then I can make a friendly
We need a
amendment.
second before we can
Okay.
entertain a friendly.
Can I make a second and then make a friendly amendment or does someone else have to make the second?
I'll second it.
Okay, she's second. Okay, what's the friendly amendment?
I would just like that we allocate the 150,000 for the bus in this budget so that we add that from the transportation fund today.
I concur with that as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Okay. So Nancy, could I ask you to restate the motion as amended?
Yes,
with
I
the
move
friendly-
that we approve the budget as presented, adding in a 3% COLA increase for staff, as well as $150,000 for the 36 shuttle.
And the 5% merit increase too?
I believe that was already incorporated.
Oh, okay.
That's already in.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Mayor, for point of clarification, just for minutes, we had Nancy do the first motion. We had you second the first motion and then you did the amendment? No, you second. the
I
first
believe
motion.
Judith
Judith was the
seconded.
official.
Okay, thank you.
We have a 6-1 vote in favor with Counselor Wolf, the one no vote.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next item is J4, Chamber of Commerce Information Center sign. And it's my understanding that is the planning department has asked that be withdrawn and discussed in a work session. Is that correct, Denise?
Yeah, and I think you approved that when you approved the budget, that would go ahead and be withdrawn.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when we approved the agenda, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. The night is not that old. I'm sorry. Sorry to act fuzzy so early in the evening. Okay, so J5, legal rate increase for Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry PC. Mr. Parker?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I've got a request into City Council to approve an increase in rate that our firm is imposing. Now, we have had your rate at the same rate for the last 5 years. And as you've seen in your budget, everybody's costs are going up, including ours. So requesting that you approve, we are at 195 an hour right now. Which I think is a pretty good rate, but you guys are a great client and you paid every bill. So it's a great deal for us too. But given that it's been 5 years, we're looking to bump it to 225 an hour for general counsel work like this kind of work. Then we have a higher rate for litigation because it involves one of my other partners in a lot of the litigation, excuse me. And so it'd be $250 for partner work on litigation, and then it would be $225 for associate work on litigation. And hopefully you won't have much litigation. We can hopefully avoid that. But you know, I really try not to increase your rates. I really try to be conscious of your budget and all my clients' budgets. So that's why it's been 5 years. I kind of struggle between increasing rates a little more regularly, so you get a little smaller jump each time, and doing a little bigger jump in a longer period of time. I think there's pros and cons to both approaches. We just didn't increase rates for 5 years because I didn't think I needed to. But now we need to sort of cover our expenses, keep our good associates, and pay for our IT work and all that kind of stuff. So it really isn't looking to increase any income to me, unfortunately. It's more to cover costs and cover our associates who are doing good work.
Good. Thank you for the explanation. Council, any questions for Mr. Parker? Julie?
So with the rate increase, would you still bill 50% of that 225 for travel time?
Yeah. So that, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Other questions or concerns? John?
So for the record, I guess, by my computation, the city attorney is asking for a 15.4% increase. Is that correct?
That sounds about right.
Thank you.
Further
Oh, I
comments?
have a comment.
Okay, Julie.
I don't know any other lawyer who charges $225 an hour. That's so low. That's all I have to say. I know a lot of lawyers.
I appreciate that. You know, well, yeah, it's one of these things where, you know, I've been doing some work for another client where we get reimbursed by the developer. You know, our firm does that too. You know, we basically have other clients that, you know, when we do development work or we do special work, the developer pays our fees. We're not working for them, working for you, but it's a cost of them developing in the city. Some of our clients are great with that because it allows us to keep our rates a little lower for them, higher for the developer. Other clients don't like that because it's complicated and they want to encourage development. But yeah, one developer asked me what our rates were, and he basically told me I was crazy charging that low. But you can get attorneys to do work for this price. You could probably find some that are even lower doing our kind of work. But I don't think you get the same service, honestly. So appreciate that though.
Thank you. Judith?
I move that we approve the legal rate increase for Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry PC as per the memorandum.
Do we have a second? Julie seconded. Julie seconds it. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
We have a 6-1 vote in favor with Counselor Shada voting against.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are at council correspondence. Anybody have anything? Nancy?
Just one thing, I got a call from a constituent today about my friend GFL. You can't tell what time they're going to come. Sometimes they come at 7:30 at night, sometimes they come at 7 in the morning. And so GFL, I've raised it as an issue before and it continues to be an issue in my ward. So I just wanted to let you all know that.
Okay, thank you. Natalie?
Yes, just to put it out there as well. I was contacted by someone in my ward who is struggling with a situation in which an ADU on their property would help their family. And so I just thought I would put that out there as I guess something to note as we move forward with conversations around the code update.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we're coming up on our new year here, so I guess we'll have a list of things to deal with. That can be one of them. Okay. Yesterday I had an opportunity to go to a homeless camp west of town. That was with Denise had called this to my attention actually about 2 months ago. And if you go out, actually, if you're up on Highway 24, as you're coming, if you're coming from Cascade, you know, you're eastbound and you take that first ramp, the west entry into Manitou. Just before you get there on the south side of the road, there's kind of like a little parking lot. If you park and walk back there, you'll find quite a quite a collection of camps, and there's actually a stockade. I'm going to go ahead and forward you pictures that I took yesterday. I was up there with Stan Vanderwolf, who's our county commissioner from here. He looked at it, and we've kind of been trying to get some action out of the county for, the last 2 months. And he said that he hoped to get something going in the next couple of weeks so we get that cleaned up. Beyond that, when we get into these situations, it gets to be a problem with the, with the jurisdiction, in this case, El Paso County, trying to get permission to go in and clean the area up because we have to get that from the landowner. So Stan said he would have the county attorney look into some other process if there is something, so we can get maybe an agreement with landowners so we don't spend all this time. Chief Forsett has had in the last year, I think, about 15 complaints or calls, smoke, potential fires, things like that. Fortunately, we haven't had a fire up there, but I'll send you the photos. You can decide how much time we've got. It looks pretty hazardous. So anyway, we're trying to make progress there. Anybody else? If not, Denise?
Okay, I have a couple of things to report out. Is the zoning code is going to planning commission this week. November 17th is a special meeting, hoping to bring it to council on December 20th for the first reading, and staff will provide a report of the discussion at that time. Good news, Chelsea, our senior planner, passed her AICP exam last Friday. That's a very big thing. So we now have 2 planners with AICP certification. It's a tough exam. Only about 60% who take the test pass it, and she did her very first time. So that is huge. We're also submitting a grant request to the Front Range Waste Diversion Program to study the waste stream in Manitou Springs. So that will be submitted on Thursday. If awarded, we'll partner with the city of Colorado Springs to manage that. So I wanted to share that. Williams Canyon maintenance is done for the winter. It's supposed to be done in November and it is completed. So that's great news. Storm drain cleanout continues before the winter snow. I think you've seen people out and about cleaning the storm drains, which is big. That's a new initiative. We've done it. I know they've done it in the past, but the last couple of years has been challenging just to get that on the calendar. And you'll see Eric out cleaning those. We also hired a new aquatics manager and she started working. It's Jessica Scott. So she's here from New Orleans. And then we did some paving last week, parking with neighborhood services on private property, where Parks is working with neighborhood services on private property for dead tree and vegetation cleanup. You may have had people complain about that. So we're working on those. And I believe that's all I have. I do want to share that last week we had a group of funders come to the library building and they had their monthly meeting there. And then they wanted to see the new model that will be going to Planning Commission and then Council. The mayor was able to speak to them about the library and the need. We also talked with the library there and the school that talked about the partnership. So we did not ask for any funding. It was just so that they could see the building and see the model, the proposed model. So I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Denise. Nancy, a
Sorry.
follow-on question?
And I do have a question for Denise. I shared that last week, a bunch of neighbors in my ward were horrified when a road appeared in Deer Valley Park. And I had reported that, and I'm hoping that we're not going to see any more roads, and I don't know what's going to be done, if that's going to be mitigated or not. And secondly, there was a suggestion of a citywide fire mitigation plan. Is there anything more to report on that?
Yeah, I mentioned that to you. We're looking at it and we'll be bringing it to council, but not this year. It will be 2023 that we bring. That wild grass has been replanted and a boulder has been put there to block the entrance. So that has been managed.
Thank you.
You bet.
Oh, and if I could ask your indulgence, something I forgot, Mike Casey, and you remember Mike from last week, he presented for the Planning Commission. He wanted to extend his thanks to city staff for taking care of a storm drain in front of his office in the 700 block of Manitou Avenue. And he mentioned that during a rainstorm last spring, Roy and Denise were out in their raincoats, making sure that the storm drain worked. So he thought that was worthy of mention and wanted to call that to council's attention. That's all I've got. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, we're good. Thanks.